It's a very interesting topic that we'll be talking about today. It's something that's very relevant. We've seen a lot of conversations happening in media circles in a lot of places on the situation that we're facing right now. So I'm very honored that we have people who come with a lot of not just experience but also expertise in handling various kind of situations. Right. So that's what our focus is today. How, as HR, are we maintaining the human and business balance during the COVID-19 situation? I'm going to kickstart the discussion with one question that might seem obvious at a broad level, but a lot of us don't really know what's happening at the ground level. HR is in the front line of the situation today, and I think a lot of you are finding yourselves in positions that are unimaginable to a large extent. Right? If I can direct my question to Ridha, and we can just move it across the panel. So Ridha, it'd be great to hear from you some of the immediate challenges that you faced, with respect to the situation that we're facing right now.
Yeah, I think the first and foremost thing that came to our mind was ensuring the safety of our employees, right? And the situation is changing so much on a daily basis. Initially, when this COVID-19 started off, we didn't take it so seriously, I suppose. I mean, across the industries, unless we saw the kind of damage it was doing to other countries, and we realized that unless India responds, would not be able to survive this. So I guess each of the strategies we adopted was more on a daily basis. I think the policies kept changing on a daily basis, and the initial challenge was mainly, the acceptance of the employees to these changing dynamics, and the expectations the organization had from them. And since we belong from the medical equipment industry, it was even more important that our people were more sensitive to what's happening across, right? And so I guess that sensitization, and also realizing that our own employees, while they would be required to work on the field, also need to be protected equally as much as any other normal person, was the significant challenge we had.
Okay. One important question that I think all of us are quite eager to hear from someone who's literally in the front line of the way things are, right? And you represent the Medicare and hospital industry as well.
As far as healthcare is concerned, we are actually on a different boat than any other industry, because as part of the essential service, we have to be there while other people are allowed to work at home. And as an hospital industry or a healthcare workers, you have to be at office. So we can't ask the nurses to be at home. We can't ask the doctors to be at home, because they would have to be at the offices or the hospitals. So the immediate challenge, which I think Ridha was mentioning, that part was very true about the compliances and the regular updates from the governments, which was happening regarding this part, and to get ourselves updated on a real-time basis and act accordingly. Okay? That's a prime part. You have to actually get a tap on all your stakeholders and get the information on it. Second, I feel you need to continuously have communication clinicians with your nurses, because they are your bedrock as far as your hospital operations are concerned. They are the people who will be instilling confidence in your patients by the conversations. So you need to have a constant communication with the type of security or safety measures you have in place in your organization, so that they can pass the confidence to the patients, actually, that you are in the right place and you will get better as the day progresses, or as the days progresses. So that's two major challenges which we faced as far as healthcare is concerned, apart from the mobilizing part, because the entire country was struggling to get the staff from one place to other, because they were stuck in one place. However, we had a twofold approach in our hospitals, because we had some set of people who have to come to hospitals because they are part of a continuous healthcare operations. Apart from that, we have some people who are part of corporate office who have to be at the offices, who are not in terms of work from home culture as such. So it's a two-prong approach we actually went through, and each of them had a different strategy to play with, I would say.
Anuj, going back with the same question, right? And given the fact that your company is based in different countries, and you've seen something that's triggered off in Europe much before it came to India, right?
Yeah.
So it'll be great to hear your thoughts on the same question as well.
Yeah, thanks, Afeef. I think as Ridha said, one of the biggest challenges that we had was the situation was changing every day. And we had to be really agile and really flexible with respect to whether it comes to policies or an approach. I think a couple of things which we did well. One was we immediately, the moment it started spreading in China, we got really good insight from our Chinese team. So I think they were way ahead of the curve, and they were really putting in place some good practices. So we could leverage some of them. As you rightly said, I think when you have presence in multiple countries, that's the one advantage you can make use of. So that's what we did. I think the second critical thing that we did was right in the beginning, we put the team in place, the task force team in place, which had representatives from different functions that included HR, that included the sales, commercial, IT. So we constituted that team just to ensure that the mandate was very clear, liaising with the government officers, liaising with the regulatory authorities, liaising with employees, just to ensure that, we are up to date all the time. And as Ridha rightly said, that I think when you need the agility, you need a dedicated team of high performers. So we put some of our best people as part of the team who were really driving it on a day in, day out basis. I think thanks to them, a lot of hard work they put in place. Then in the end, I think job for me or our country head was very, very easy. And they were also responsible to give the feedback to the management team on a periodic basis. So I think that was the structure. From the structure point of view, that's what we followed. But I think one of the challenges what we had in with us was, how do we really continuously engage our customers? I think that was one of the most challenging parts, because there was no set template, right? No one really had seen this situation earlier. There was no set template in place. So we really had to engage with our employees to ensure that there is a continuity there, especially in some of the ophthalmic hospitals. It's still allowed to operate in March. We had to ensure the availability of service colleagues or the application colleagues. And on the other hand, was keeping our employees engaged as well. There was a lot of anxiety our employees had in the beginning, and they still have it. But I think through the right team in place and right communication, we could at least mitigate it to some extent.
What I also hear is because of the presence, like you mentioned, right? You had some early signs and early triggers, and to some extent, you probably had some kind of mitigation plans already in place, right? Anila, you also have been working closely, with organizations that have presence in different countries, right? So how have the dynamics when the lockdown was announced, or a lot of things that were that triggered off, the whole change in working style. So what were some of the immediate things that you observed from an internal and from an external perspective?
Yeah. For us, the key was the safety of the employees, actually. And we were a little proactive in terms of closing shop, and we went work from home mode, or 2 weeks ahead of the lockdown, actually speaking. I think around the 9th or something like that. And
Okay.
so because we're already in that space of work from home, in any given time, about 30 to 40% of the employees do always work from home. So it was a little easy for us to kind of get back over there. We didn't have to really struggle much, except that the employees who had to leave Bangalore and go back to their hometown. So we ensure they have good connectivity, all of that stuff. And the first week, 2 weeks are a little challenging because of connectivity, all of that stuff. So we spoke to the business leaders. We told them, it's time you all pitch in and ensure and don't put pressure on the employees. And so immediately after that, what we did was we realized, communication is very important, because, the employees are kind of, they were a little lost. They didn't know what's really happening, and they were kind of, soaking themselves with so much of negative news around them. So we kept the communication going, from various, kind of, forums, starting from the CEO to the kind of, the MD and the managers and the HRs. So that's how we, for the first 2-3 weeks, we kept it going, and it was, good for us. Yeah.
Okay, great. I think that's also brings us to one important area that is probably not being in the immediate spotlight of a lot of HR and operations functions, which is what is our emergency situation communication, right? We have companies have risk assessment plans, they have mitigation plans, but I think a very important area that with some of the companies that I've spoken with is they've started proactively focusing on what is my communication during emergency situations, right? And so that was an interesting thing. Anila, I'll put this question back to you. My follow-up question to the situation that you mentioned was some of the initial things that you faced during the lockdown. Can you also share a few things that the employees and the organization are facing right now as well? What are some of the current challenges, right? We are now in day 55, 54. So we're almost in the second month of what we've faced. What are some of the what are some of the current challenges that you're facing? People have got used to this format to some extent. Families have got used to it. But I'm sure there's something that we've also been observing in the recent past, right? So can you share a few thoughts on that?
Yeah.